Okay, we are back. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for listening all these years, for listening in 2025. Really had a good time with the shows and the episodes that we released for season 5. And looking forward to 2026. Hopefully, we'll be delivering more good content, great content. Something that you guys will enjoy. Again, don't take it for granted that you all choose to spend your valuable time listening to our humble podcast. Hope that it's bringing value to you and that you're finding something worthy. I enjoy doing this. My family enjoys doing this. So thank you so much. So this is season 6, episode 1. And we're going to pick up where we left off with season 5. We still got a few of these poems and songs that we'll be discussing and trying to give you guys an insight into, some of our thoughts, our core values, things that we hold on to, things that we believe. And like I said, don't take it for granted that you guys still choose to spend your time listening. So this next poem and the songs, the music that comes from it is titled 1 Inch, 1 Mile. And the title comes from when I was young. I first heard this saying, and my mind tells me that the earliest time or situation where I would have had been exposed to this would have been probably at a soccer or football game, where if someone takes aim like a shot at goal, and if they miss, it doesn't really matter how wide they miss the goal. A miss doesn't count as a goal. So that's the thinking behind this. So when you hear me talking about it, that's kind of the philosophy behind it. That there's some things in life where you just have to score. You just can't get close enough. Where getting close enough doesn't count, Now I know that this project, the bedrock for it was really the time after my mother passed away. And I was thinking a lot about life. Like, what does my life really mean to me? What is it worth? What is the end goal? And this is a simple. These were simple words. It's a simple poem when I wrote it. So that's one thing that to keep in mind. It's not that deep of a thought in this case. It's just one of those things that I wanted to remind myself, or I found myself needing to be reminded that there's certain things in life that you just have to get right. I can think of it as my responsibilities. There's some that I just have to, they have to take, center stage. They have to take priority over others. Things like faith, I have it settled in my heart what I believe. I'm not looking to change that, I believe I'm on the right path. I know I'm on the right path as far as my faith goes. Just to put out there, I'm a Christian, so I believe in Salvation, as the gospel teaches us, is the gift of God, the free gift of God. That I've found the right path for that. But there are things that we as people, we can agree on. Like as a parent, I think raising my children right is not something that I can or that's something that I should leave to chance. I am responsible for making sure that when my kids are out there and they're not with me, that they're as good as it gets, as they are good citizens. That when I say this to my son, my oldest son at least, he's driving now. He's got a job and he takes himself to school and all that stuff. Like when I'm not with you and something happens, you get pulled over. This is the world we live in. I want you to come home alive. There are certain things that you should not get pulled over for. There are certain things that you should not be doing while you're driving. They said you don't text and drive. That's a simple one. Keep your eyes on the road ahead. Don't speed. Things that, as a parent, the goal is to make sure that when my children become someone else's neighbor, that they are a neighbor that you want to have. So it's one of those things that if I don't do my job, if I don't do my part, then I can't expect my kids. Well, they could, but I should not expect them to raise themselves and make up for my failures. So that's a like a high level thing, but very important thing, a very important part of life. That when I say in the way of life, if you miss the goal by an inch, you've missed it by a mile. Something like that. Something like raising good people. I have to be the one who sets the foundation for that. I don't want my neighbor having to correct my child. I don't want the police later on in life, having to say, well, this kid just isn't right. I don't want the prison system to be the ones that says, well, let's try and reform this person. So there's some things that are important, so important that we don't want to not give them our best. Now, going back to what I say is the bedrock, my thoughts about my mother and her time, the time that I had to spend, that I got to spend with her. These are things that were emphasized in our home growing up. Doing right by anyone, by everyone, was not like an option. We just were taught to do right. One of the things that I've told some folks, people who know me, is the value of hard work. My father had some formal education, but the way he earned a living was mostly by working with his hands. In today's world, the way we use language today, you would be considered a collision repairman, someone who works on cars that have been in accidents, and he would take any car that was brought to him in some kind of collision, and whether it's the front end or side impact or rear end, you would find a way to, straighten it out. And yeah, I know that nowadays, because I have my brother who does the same kind of work, you can replace a lot of things easily. But back then in Zimbabwe, it was more cost effective for the people who brought their work to him, for him to just repair the same old parts, You straighten out those mangled pieces and put some body filler on those, reshape things, and then paint. And folks would come and pick up their cars and they would be looking like brand new. And there were no shortcuts in the work that he did. There was, it's not as mangled as it was when it showed up. No one wants that. No customer says, make it loose mangled, make it. No, they want the car to look the way they remembered it, the way it looked when they got it, So that aspect of hard work was always a goal. Like let do the work. If you're gonna take someone's money and you tell them the job is gonna take this much time and it's gonna cost this much, you either have a happy customer, you don't have a happy customer. And if the goal is to have a happy customer, then you do what it takes. I think I've talked about my mother a lot. Her work was similar. The things she made with her hands, whether it was knitting things for babies, lots of newborn babies, the clothes that they wear from the hospital, their going home clothes, those are special to the parents. A lot of those are keepsakes. And my mother made things like that. She would knit little jerseys. We call them jerseys. You might call them little sweaters. You might call them sweaters, depending on where you are. The little hat, the booties that go along with that. And, those things are special. I've had kids. We've prepared for each one. We've taken things to the hospital and said, hey, this is how we're going to dress them, on the way before we leave the hospital. It's very intentional. And those things mean a lot to us. I don't know how much of that we've kept. My wife would be the one to say. But if my mother were to say to an expecting mother, hey, I can do this for you and it'll cost you X amount of dollars, and she delivered something subpar, that would be disappointing, to the parents and, to the moment that they were hoping to create. So both my parents understood the value of setting goals and knowing that those goals not only impacted them, but would have an impact later on the lives of others. And that's an aspect of goal setting. I think that's important to keep in mind. That is, we go through life and we are focused on achieving certain things in our lives. Those achievements are not just for us. They also impact other people, either directly or indirectly. In the case of both my parents, you have paying customers, but you are also going to affect how people might feel about. In the case of my father, people might walk away. If they don't walk away happy, they might walk away thinking, "Man, these collision repair people, they always want to take your dollar." And the same could be said for my mother's crafts. She did the knitting and sewing and all kinds of things. And so we need to always keep in mind that the things that we do, even if they're personal goals to maybe achieve a certain level of earning or an income. The road that gets us there is not just we're not just walking alone. It's not just us by ourselves. There are lives around us that can be touched. It's clear to see in the case of actual sports that I follow sports, some sports. I think talking about soccer, the AFCON that just got completed, Africa Cup of Nations tournament, the whole thing in Morocco. You watch that. There's a penalty that is missed by somebody. There's a goal that is disallowed by a referee. And, at the end, when Senegal wins and the jubilation, it's not just for the guys, the 11 players on the field. It touches a lot of lives. It touches that joy. I know I felt it. I know others across the world felt it. To see that goal get into the nets, and when the referee blows the final whistle, like okay, we did it. These guys did it. But none of the misses count. No one walks away saying, "Man, I'm so glad that one came so close." There are times in sports events, obviously, where the win is a win, and soccer is one of those things where you win by a difference of one goal. You don't always need 2 or 3 or 4. Sometimes, depending on how the tournament is structured and qualifying rounds, you may need 4 goals, but usually every game you can win by 1. And there are things like that. The example that I gave earlier was my impact on the lives of my children is so important that I get so much time to do it. When they are young, babies, toddlers, those years are important. You get to lay the foundation. But then they grow up and they become teenagers, and you realize, man, maybe I got a few years left with this child. Maybe now, my youngest, the twins, just turned 13 yesterday. Maybe that's why I'm talking about kids so much. But that's the thing. Between 13 and 18, that time flies. I have my oldest who's going to be 18 end of April. Between 13 and 18, that time goes by so fast, and it's crucial that, for me at least, that I put my finger on those things that are important, that I help direct them towards success and things that are critical, where success will have a lifetime impact. So that's the story behind this poem, or this music that goes along with these words. I already mentioned the first verse. You might not have caught it because I didn't say it was the first verse, but it says, in the way of life, if you miss the goal by an inch, you've missed it by a mile. The second part says, if you don't follow the commandment, you're not loving God. If you're not loving your neighbor. I know I mentioned God and I bring God into the context of this, but I think I would be very hard pressed to find a person who disagrees that loving others, being loved, makes life worth it, feels good, is success in itself. And I already mentioned the aspect of affecting others by, how we pursue our goals and how we instruct, especially our children, to live life. Speaking on the just scriptures, the commandments, even by Jesus himself, boiling them down, they boil down to two: loving God with mind, heart, soul, loving your neighbor, and loving your neighbor as you love yourself. And I know we can all find examples of people who don't do that. The world is full of that. There's a lot of selfishness, there's a lot of greed, there's a lot of self-centeredness. And sometimes those attributes, the ones that people actually want, they would rather put themselves first. And to them, that's acceptable. But at least to me, it is very clear that in life you need others. It's hard to enjoy life when you don't have someone to share it with. The reverence that I have for God is, like I already said, that's untouchable. There's no putting anything above Him. But loving my neighbor is a choice that I can make every day to say, I want my neighbor to have as good a life as I'm having. Right? And that's just doing neighborly things. I'm not talking about highly spiritual things. I'm just talking about being there for others. And to answer the question about, again, who your neighbor is, whoever person that your life can impact in that moment. It doesn't have to be the person in the house next to yours or just living within your actual neighborhood. We meet people all the time who can walk away with a good or bad experience based on how we choose to interact with them. Going back to my son and me telling him, how to be a good driver. Yeah, I don't want him to be that enraged person who's honking at people, who's in and out of lanes, who's impatient, who always feels like, he is late or he's got to get there super fast. I'm like, okay, leave the house on time then. Don't get mad at someone who's driving the normal speed of traffic because you made a poor decision and left the house too late to get to school on time or something like that. So that question about who our neighbor is, I think, just look around you and look at the people whose life are impacted by choices that you make. And then choose what your goal is going to be. Are you going to be kind? Are you going to be loving? Are you going to be hospitable, generous? Whatever it means to that person. Can that be your goal in that moment, to be that person? So they can also have an experience that they can say, well, maybe for them, that could be the measure of meeting the goal for the day. We live a life nowadays where a lot of people have a lot of anxieties. They carry so much weight, and maybe success for them depends on how the world interacts with them. Maybe their goal is to just make it through the day without panicking, without having to fear that, maybe today is just going to be as bad as the others have been. Again, you don't know what anyone and everyone's circumstances truly are. But if you think about your life, your lived daily experiences, what success looks like, and what failure looks like. And sometimes career-wise, those things are easy to define. I know that many of us have heard people talking about earning six-figure incomes. Okay, that can be a goal, but you can still be happy with before you get there. And you might get there and realize maybe that's not enough anymore. So some goals in life, you can be like, maybe the way I defined it, maybe I can adjust. I can make an adjustment. Maybe instead of defining the goal of happiness based on what you earn, it could be just goal is happiness. Am I happy with the life that I am living? Am I happy with the choices that I'm making? The spouse, if you have kids, or some of those other choices could be a better definition of prosperity. I guess, if you read the Declaration of Independence for the U.S. and you read maybe the preamble, all men are created equal, and one of the things that our Creator has endowed us is this freedom to pursue happiness or to pursue prosperity. And how you define that might make it easier to define the other goals and supporting milestones that get you there. So, again, where your life is leading you and where your life is leading others is something to consider. You're talking about neighbors being a much broader term than just the people who live in your vicinity. Your neighbor could be the people in your house. For me, my wife and my kids. Do I love them the same way I love myself? That's a very important thing to be able to do, to come to terms with, to define for myself. Do I love my wife and my children the way I love myself? Before I even go outside the house, am I doing enough for them? And the next part says to love God is to do His will. To do His will is to obey His word. And I don't want to be preachy when I'm talking about this, but there is goodness and then there's the opposite of that. When I think about the way I define like the will of God and obeying that, I have to look at the gospel. It's good news. I think there's good intent behind everything that God has designed for me. So good should be coming out of me. And that is a goal, a personal goal that I've set for myself. Now that affects how I conduct myself in business. Am I doing good? Am I honest? Am I using my time as I said I would? Am I intentional about making sure that the outcomes for the people that depend on me, you know, are good for them as well. A lot of Christians, we say this thing about, I want the light of God's light to be seen through, to shine through me. Well, it's not like we're out there in the world saying hallelujah, singing hallelujah everywhere we go. At work we're still the same people. We still have bosses and co-workers, but it's good. Is our character, our humanity, in this case, our godliness, showing through. There's a sermon, again, not to preach, but there's a sermon called the Sermon on the Mount that a lot of people are aware of, but Jesus takes time to just talk about the kingdom of heaven as it is. And it's at some point in that Sermon on the Mount, he talks about false prophets. And the admonition there is, is beware of false prophets. And I think we need to take that to heart. False prophets, they come in sheep's clothing, but it says inward they are like ravening wolves. And I know there's lots of people who call themselves prophets and they mislead a lot of people. But back to on an individual basis, if someone is following your example, where are they going to end up? Right? That's the question. You may not go around calling yourself a prophet or anything like that. But think about the example that you set. When you go out there, and if someone else is going to do what you do, if you lie, if you cheat, if you steal, if you tell a bunch of white lies, if you are deceptive in business, if someone else is doing that, most of us, we don't like it when others do that to us. If someone lies to us, we are so righteous and indignant about it, We are pointing the finger at somebody. What never fails. What usually happens is false people get exposed. In life, there's someone who always knows something about you that you think no one knows. And at some point, it happens that you will get exposed. And I'm thinking, in this case, when I'm thinking about these words, I'm speaking from a personal level, reflecting on, like I said, that bedrock, that foundational thoughts about the life that I enjoyed with my parents. If you're doing one thing and then telling people to do a thing completely different. Okay, if you're telling people to do one thing and you yourself, you do something completely different. That's what we call hypocrisy, right? You tell people, this is the way it's done. This is the way it should be done. But when it comes to you, there's an aside. There's but once people learn that about you, they would rather follow your example because, hey, it's working for you. So, again, think about that. The goal, if you miss the goal in life, the impact could be greater than just your own failures. You could be teaching other people bad habits that in turn could lead to their own failures. There are certain phrases in this that kind of repeat. So I'm just gonna maybe wrap it up this. I'm gonna wrap it up. Let's see if if it actually happens this way. But I thought that is embedded in this poem is put some love in your heart and share that love with your neighbor. Give it freely to whoever. And I say, for the one who gave it to you wants you to give it away. In the road of life, it is always better when we love. Love, I think, is the cornerstone here of what our goals in life ought to be. And I'm not just talking about love your career or love what you do, but the love that we get to share with others. For me, that means that if I'm working so hard to earn money, it's just not because I want to see it sitting in the bank. I really want to spend time with my family, my wife and my kids. I really want to spend time with my sisters in Zimbabwe, my brothers. I want them to experience the joy that I feel, when I have a good meal, like a really, really good meal at a really good restaurant. The person I want with me is my wife. I want her to taste what I'm having. This year we'll be celebrating 20 years of our marriage. I've known my wife since 2004. August of 2004. We got married in May of 2006. The goal when we met, when I was courting her, was to have someone to walk with in this life. That was the goal. I really wanted, I wasn't just trying to date around, Young people, sometimes, you think you want that. But when I met my wife and I knew that I was falling in love with her, and I finally mastered the courage to tell her, my pitch was, I want something to last me the rest of my life. It's not a decision I was living to chance. And I can say from day one to now, that's been my consistent goal with her, for us. When she said yes to dating me, and she said yes to being my wife, and then she said I do in front of those witnesses that we gathered, that was the goal. To have those moments with her, the moments that have carried us to today. And as we have created this life together, it's been with an eye on, and when I get to the end, this is what I wanted. I can look back and say, this is precisely what I wanted. These 20 years up to today, I can say I've been on goal. I've been on target. It's been as beautiful. It's been as wonderful, as amazing, as enjoyable, as thrilling as I wanted it to be. But it's because I really chose love. I wanted that. I wanted that experience of loving somebody till the end. We've added kids to the mix. Again, before we had these children, we talked about these children. I remember, as young people, as young as we were then, we would go on walks and we would be talking about how many children do we want? And my number was always 4 or 5, because I come from a reasonably large family, reasonably being. My mother had 8 children. My father, all of us combined, there were 13 of us. So, there's always a number of kids in the house, living in the house at the same time. So I wanted that feeling. We not only talked about how many, but we talked about names. Hey, it would be nice if we have a girl, would name her this. If we have another girl, we could name her that. If we have boys, that's what our dating life, that's what our life as a couple engaged, when we're engaged. That's what our life was the first years of our marriage before we had kids. Setting goals out of love for children we didn't even have. Decisions about, now we have the children, now we have to raise them, educate them. Who's gonna be the breadwinner here? Okay. What role does each individual play? When our children were faced with challenges, like in school, who does what? Who shows up when it matters? When the other one cannot be there, is there faith, confidence that whichever parent shows up, they're going to make a decision that's consistent with the goals that we've set? And I can say up to now, we've traveled that road faithfully. In the road of life, it is always better when we love. If you miss the mark by an inch, you have missed it by a mile. Again, these thoughts for me, like I said, they're really based on my own experience. What I've seen that worked in my parents' lives, and also what I've experienced that has worked in mine. You can take this approach and put it into anything, apply it to anything that you set as a goal, and you can be like, I have to hit the target. A miss is as wide as a mile, but they're not all goals are created equal. The goals that really matter to me, where this really takes center stage, are those goals that we set that have a way of affecting other people. Where if love is not the goal, if showing love is not the goal, then if you mess up in those areas of your life, then the fallout might be greater than you just missing out on an opportunity to celebrate. So, again, I hope this time you chose to spend with us today has been valuable to you. I always enjoy doing these deep dives into my own thoughts, and as a way of, now I'm wrapping up. Now, as a way of wrapping up, I'll say this: if you've ever taken a poetry class or literature class and you have to give meaning and say, what do you think the writer meant here? You know, Shakespeare has been gone from who knows how many years. So is Mark Twain, and we can only imagine what they were trying to say. Now, I've written way more than these things in my life. These words that I've shared with you guys over the years, they're just, I don't know, what's out there. I'd like to do this because I don't want maybe my children who read some of my words to say, well, what did he mean by that? You know, sometimes you listen to a song and people are like, oh, the song is about his wife and this song is about blah, blah, blah. I think it's really awesome sometimes when someone just comes out and says, this is what I meant. So that's been this exercise for me, being able to come out and just share with you all. Like, yes, some of these simple words really have a deeper meaning. And in some of these, especially the ones that I've put to music, they are open to interpretation. And that's okay. But I think it's always a cool thing to actually hear someone say, oh, this is what I was thinking about and this is what I meant. So hopefully this adds more meaning to you guys when you either hear or read my words. But having said I was wrapping up, I really am wrapping up now. Thank you again for listening to this episode of Life Story Podcast. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye. Cheers.
Put some love in your heart and share that love with your neighbor. Give it freely to whoever, for the one who gave it to you. Wants you to give it away in the road of life. It is always better when we love. If you missed the mark by an inch, you have missed it by a mile.